Mr. Speaker, I rise to make a few comments about this piece of legislation. 2 years ago, when it was in the House, I think when it came out of committee, there was some division over its support. And when it came to the House floor, many of the members of our caucus supported the legislation, although it didn't meet the thresholds to get on the ballot. Obviously, I think this bill is going to meet the majority threshold. So I think that issue is less relevant here today. But I want to say on behalf of this side of the aisle, there certainly is the recognition that our Constitution is a document that can and at times should be amended. And I think what we've heard today is there is a differing opinion of to what degree, if we are to implement early voting, those provisions lie in statute versus lying in the Constitution. And while our Constitution does provide for certain restrictions of early voting, those restrictions are sort of minimum safeguards. It's certainly a party that is in the minority would want to make sure they're in place. And voter integrity that we've heard so much about, unfortunately, in the last election revolving around the presidential election, we've heard the conversations about whether or not there has been foreign interference or whether or not the cyber world of voting is secure and has provided accurate outcomes for certain jurisdictions. But I think fundamentally one of the things that we all agree upon is that this early voting proposal would have a requirement of in-person voting. So there is the element of the individual presenting themselves in order to vote for a ballot. And I do think that it provides that safeguard and that opportunity for somebody to come in and vote. And where the concerns revolve around is one which is very real, is fiscal on our communities. How long are we going to keep the voting process open? Because our towns and cities have to pay for that process. The second concern that we've heard about is, should there be some type of identification process when the person presents themselves? And as I recognize that those things will be worked out in statute, there is a leap of faith that everybody takes in this process. It's sort of weird with election laws. I feel like we're sort of the employees that are drafting the process by which we're going to be hired by our employer and dictating that process. And so I think there is a level of discomfort in administering or ruling on these type of provisions. And so, what we saw a number of years ago with the contested election process that came out of Stratford, it unfortunately becomes a partisan process that I think this chamber, in particular with our voting laws, we need to avoid. Where we could come to an agreement, we should, because it's not just about how we get elected, it's also about how we are perceived by the voters. And so I understand the reservations that were discussed today. I think they are valid. Should this provision go on the ballot and succeed, I think we will have robust discussions trying to address those issues. And so with that, I'm certainly going to support this measure. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.